It's the budget versus actual balance sheet.
Just the jumps.
Okay, that was just for her reference, right?
But that's just for your reference.
Yeah.
The warrant or the full, that's signed by Charlie actually.
The off warrant and the warrant, yeah.
And the warrant.
There we go. Just sign, you did that one, just for the date.
We don't purchase it.
What is it?
Okay, it is 7:05, so we'll call the March meeting of the East Green Bush Library Board to order. President Charlie Bene, we've got a quorum here. And just a quick review of the agenda. Everybody notice anything they want to raise? If not, no public here for comment. So we'll go on to approval of the minutes. Our Secretary Cami isn't here tonight, but I'll kick off approving the February 25th, 2025 meeting minutes draft. Folks have any things they want to raise on the comments? There's a couple of small tweaks to page 4. On the administrative committee meeting, there's one small typo in the admin committee minutes. 20-day payout instead of 20-day notice.
What's the page 4 one? Oh, page 4 is the draft minutes.
Yeah, here's what the draft minutes. It should be targeting fall 2025. And the line underneath should be spring or fall 2026.
And then the other one was admin committee.
So those are
Yeah, that's admin.
Yeah. Alright, so anything else folks want to raise on the minutes? If not, motion to approve the minutes of the February 25th, 2025 library board meeting as amended.
We'll make the motion.
Alright, so we've got any discussion, comments? Second? Okay, we got Kayla. All in favor? It's like 6, so it is approved unanimously. We'll move on to treasurer reports. That'll take us to the board.
So far, the year is 19.2% over, and we are within our budget and in good financial standing. A couple of things that to take note of is that there are 2 lines that we're currently over budget in at the moment. One's books and materials. We pay for some subscriptions up front, but then Jill did make a note that we want to kind of keep track of our electronic resources because we might need to make an adjustment at some point, but not yet. And then same thing with our facilities line, we're 3% over budget, and part of that is our national grid bill is 67% higher than it was at this time last year. So keeping an eye on that. However, we also did prepay some maintenance contracts, so that's also a factor. And some larger expenses this time around were for road art for books, the financial audit, and IT services.
On to
Okay, so there's a motion to accept the off warrant in the amount of $62,486.76 for the period of February 20th, 2025 to March 11th, 2025 as presented.
motion, any discussion, comments?
Wait, who made the motion, sorry?
Yeah. And then I'll second, I'll second it. All in favor? Okay, 6-0, approved unanimously. You want to do the
Oh, sure.
Sorry, I'm sorry, I got distracted for a minute. Do you want to read it? Yeah.
I trust it.
Motion to authorize the president to sign the warrant for the period of February 20th to March 11th, the amount of $24,257.47.
Motion, second. Keep for second. Any discussion or comments? All in favor? Okay, 6-0, so unanimously approve the warrant and move on to financials.
They said that they're 19.2% over, and there's a motion to approve the March 11th, 2025 financials with 19.2% of the year completed as presented.
Okay, so we've got a motion. Second from Mary. And any discussion or comments? All in favor? 6-0, so the motion passes unanimously. Thank you all. All right, we'll move on to committee reports. Amanda for admin.
You said there was a typo on the,
Oh, yeah, there's.
sorry, let's start with that. 'Cause-
Yeah. So we've got on that, under the staff manual benefits, the PTO section, the 20-day notice should be 20-day payout.
Okay, all right.
Much.
So as you see, we are still working on the website project. Last update was that we were getting 5 vendor quotes for construction of the library's website, which definitely needs no help, and love it, but it needs help. Same with staff manual, we are still reviewing, we reviewed the draft that Paychex came up with. We talked about insurance, life, and other paid time off and paid sick leave along with holiday pay. And we're gonna get some quotes on life insurance, which came as a surprise. That wasn't something we offered, at least to me, it was a surprise. That wasn't something we offered previously. Cobra adding a 2% billing fee to former employees due to administrative costs. And PTO, as discussed, that should say 20-day notice or 20-day payout instead of 20-day notice. So looking to add another tier to PTO to reward long-term employees. You want those people who are here for 15 years and barely taking pay cuts to stay here. You want to give something back, so. So that's pretty much it. Most of the time was spent on staff manual. That, as we all know, is going to be a continual project, but I feel like we are making headway. This is a lot nicer manual to go through than previous iterations, and so we're gonna, next month, we're gonna work more on the website proposals. We're gonna look at those and start working on some financial policies.
I just, a general question probably for you. So it looks like both committees are working on the staff manual.
Yeah, so the services committee is in charge of like really reviewing the staff manual, but if anything that's the services committee charge, but anything with a financial component, the admin committee will be discussing and sort of also making a recommendation on the financial piece. Can we, do we think it's okay or not financially? And then the services committee will make the recommendation eventually for the final manual presentation to the board.
And the way we've got it set up too with being able to track pages in the document, I think lends itself well to if you see issues to flag them to kind of
Right.
on the front end. So.
Yeah, and anybody has access to that document, no matter what committee they're on. It's in services channel, but you all have access to that in Teams.
Thanks so much, Amanda. And we'll kick it over to Katie for services.
Okay, so we were also looking at the staff manual for the bulk of the time. As you can see, we discussed an incident with a patron misuse, and Joe was working on a solution for that. It was no ill intention, just something that needed to be addressed so that our materials weren't being damaged. So did you make any progress with that? Were you able to?
Yeah,
we were
so we
looking-
haven't purchased anything yet, no,
Okay.
but we've talked to the patron and we're in good shape right now.
Oh, good, okay. So we were also looking at the staff manual. We suggested adding an employee donation bank, so they can donate their paid time off to a pool so that, if they have a long-term illness or something, like a sick bank, basically. And then, we also talked about if a staff member has to come in on a holiday, they are paid for that holiday, and then they would additionally be paid for their service time. So if they came in for a half an hour, they would be paid for that half an hour at 1.5 time. But it wouldn't be for the entire day, it would just be for that period of time on top of their holiday pay as a thank you and motivation to come in and do what needs to be done when the library is closed on a holiday. So we briefly discussed the meeting room policy, but we're gonna bring that up next meeting. And these items, some fall under the staff manual and then others are more standalone. So what will be coming next time, dress code, meeting room policy, programming policy, library card policy, and a succession.
For what it's worth, and Julian is here. They're doing the fundraiser and I attended the meeting, and one of the inquiries is about alcohol on the premises. And so I mentioned that I believe it's in the meeting room policy.
Yep,
Right.
that's in the, well, that's one of the things that's in the programming policy for
Programming,
us
okay.
to consider
Mhm.
adjusting.
So that might be something that we can ramp up so they can move forward with their.
It's in there, it's in the draft before you.
Anything else? To Katie, Amanda for chairing, for everyone participating, and of course to Jill and to Jenna for making the committee meetings run smoothly as we get through we get into spring for our year of committee meetings. Awesome. All right, so we'll move on to Jill for the director's report.
Something that I don't think I put in my report, Charlie and I attended the Upper Hudson Director Board President training. That's a training that they do every year. It's a full day, pretty extensive training, so thank you for attending. It's always a great training. We have finished up our winter reading challenge, bundle up with a book. We, a few things that we asked people to do, we asked participants to check out a book. This is adult stuff. Ask people to check out a book by a local author or read a book that's set in New York, read a favorite book from childhood, lots of fun activities to get people to access our resources like Consumer Reports database, check out a magazine on Libby, those kinds of things, but also just nostalgia and making people feel good about themselves and the community too. We also asked people to do something nice for a coworker, or write a letter to a friend, make a one-pot meal, clean out their junk drawer. Like, so there are lots of ideas that have come to us through feedback with surveys. We've incorporated it into this challenge and we'll continue to do that with challenges moving forward. You probably noticed in my report, I talked about a couple of surveys that have gone out with storytime stuff. So we're continuing to get feedback on that and make adjustments with that. A new streaming service that we've added to our library of things is Peloton. So this is not an actual Peloton, you know, bike or treadmill. That'd be phenomenal, but it's not. It's not. It's a streaming service for classes that you can do without equipment. And so it exercise classes, meditation, yoga, running, walking. So that's a streaming service that we've purchased. We also have a new karaoke machine in the library of things. It doesn't have a screen, but you could hook it up to a phone or tablet with Bluetooth and use it for a screen. And you can play songs from YouTube, Spotify, you know, wherever you want. The free versions, those work fine. and there is an output for USB drive.
That Peloton app is excellent.
Have you
That's-
used it?
That's how I've been working out since
Oh.
before the pandemic, and I use it multiple times a week. I do not have a bike, I do not have a tread or a rowing machine or anything. And you can just use free weights or no equipment, you can filter by what you're looking for, you can filter by instructor, it's very, very good.
Great.
Yeah, so that's awesome.
It's nice that we can provide that. Just a reminder that we have instituted a $250 limit on purchases. So for new library of things items, that was a discussion that we've had with, you know, the theft of high expensive items. So we are continuing that where we're not purchasing anything over $250 right now. And there have been no changes on the number of items that can be borrowed. There's still 3 items allowed per borrower card. So moving on with just kind of an update with the piggybacking on what Nicole was saying with funding for digital resources, the budget line there. And just some challenges that we've had. I think I talked about it a little bit last month. The challenges that we've had with Hoopla. And so I just want to kind of clarify for everybody and bring you in on what we're dealing with Hoopla and Libby. Those are our primary electronic resource vendors. Licensing, electronic licensing, super complicated. It's very expensive for libraries. I've been dealing with this in my career since like back when ebooks first started becoming a thing. We were, you know, on task force and developing white papers and trying to figure out and advocating for libraries to have equitable licensing agreements with publishers, and like it's been a nightmare from the beginning and it hasn't gotten any better. And now that its usage has continued to increase, we thought pre-pandemic that maybe we had hit that plateau because we're starting to sort of plateau out, and we're not. It's, you know, we're still seeing increased usage. And right now, our digital collections overall budget is 33% of our total budget, which is primarily pretty much in line with our usage. The problem is that wait times are so much longer with our digital resources with Libby. And in order to bring that wait time down to a rate where it would match our print, you know, our typical wait time for hot items, we would have to spend a lot more money than we're spending, and obviously more resources than we have that we feel comfortable allocating. So it's sort of a delicate dance that we're trying to do, trying to ensure proper use of all of our taxpayer funds, and the Friends support us too generously with grant money. And Hoopla is funded 100% through the Friends, and we may be going to them for more money this year. Our total budget for all materials, that's print, electronics, like library things, AV, you know, DVDs, magazines, newspapers, is $161,500. And our electronic materials total budget is $53,690. Right now, our non-electronic budget is 67% of our budget and 64% of our usage. But I still think that it's relatively even because periodicals are part of that. And while you can check out a magazine, most people are using them in-house. We think we're pretty much on par with usage, straight usage numbers and budget lines in terms of the breakdown. But it's complicated. So also adding to the confusion is the difference between the vendors and how items are borrowed on. And I'm sure some of you know this, and I know we've talked about it, but I'm just gonna say it again because it's complicated and hard to sort of remember. Not only do you have overdrive, which is what you're used to seeing in terms of the bills are going to overdrive, but that's the vendor and it's Libby. So you will access, patrons will access the digital items through Libby. So those are interchangeable, overdrive and Libby, but if you look at Libby and Hoopla, those are the big piece, you know, everybody's used to Libby and Hoopla. Hoopla purchase it, Hoopla will provide us with a bundle of titles. And they charge us every time one of those titles is borrowed. Use. Versus Overdrive, you purchase, you don't really purchase the title like you do but you purchase a set number of, it depends on the publisher, it's all a little different, so that you may purchase the title or you may purchase 26 times that it can be borrowed, so there's different, it's complicated within there, but Overdrive or Libby, when you borrow something from Libby, you're put in a line for use. It's one title per usage. So just like print material, like think about Libby is like print material, not for cost, but for usage. Versus Hoopla, all the titles are available to everybody, which means you can, like, there's no wait time, so patrons love it. But it's so much more expensive because it's a cost per use. And Hoopla also doesn't, so basically we're renting. It's like the difference between, not exact, but if you think about if you're going on Amazon and you're trying to rent a movie or purchase a movie, like just think about it in that term. It's not exact, but Hoopla is renting, Overdrive sort of purchasing. It's not 100% purchasing, but it's kind of like that. The other thing is Hoopla doesn't allow us to curate the collection. So we don't get to choose what's in the collection, which is challenging because we don't get to decide on one hand, it's okay because it's patron-driven borrowing, what's wrong with that? But they don't have everything. So, and they're also not there's a lot of things in there that we would consider. There's a lot of things in there that we would not purchase. A lot of self-published authors that are not vetted, like there's just not a lot of vetting going on in Hoopla. So, and not only is it super expensive, it's also not as great of a resource as Libby, which has been really curated by staff throughout our system.
Jill, I have one question.
Yeah.
So the books that are on Libby, so if I'm waiting for, like, right now I'm reading The Wedding People, I'm waiting for The Wedding People. Are people in Bethlehem and Guilderland and other Upper Hudson libraries competing with me for that, or is that title tied to East Greenbush?
Yeah, I'm laughing because that's also complicated because it depends. We have pots of money. So we have 3 different pots of money for Libby. One goes to the consortium. It's just based on usage from the prior year. It's a set amount of money. It goes to Upper Hudson, and all they're doing is replacing things after they time out. Like after 26 uses have gone away, they're replacing those purchases. And in that case, you are in line with everybody for that title. Then we have our own pile of money that's doing the same thing, where we are purchasing titles based on our community's interest, but it goes into the pot for everybody.
For everybody in East Greenbush?
Everybody in Upper Hudson to use.
Or pot of money?
Our pot of money, every library is doing that. So we're purchasing titles, it goes in the consortium budget and everybody uses it. And that's how our Overdrive, that's how Libby and Overdrive was set up and designed. There is something else that has since come on board that we have for the past few years been using called Advantage. And that is a program within Libby that allows our librarians we set aside a certain amount of money for advantage titles and they go to our patrons first. And when there's no line, then they go to the general consortium. We try to do that for hot titles. But according to our consortium rules, you can only purchase titles that there already exists a title in the consortium. And the purpose for that is, otherwise, the big libraries would have this big collection and the small libraries would have these teeny tiny collections and it wouldn't be a consortium collection. So basically, if there's one title that's already in there, let's just say the Harry Potter, the original Harry Potter, it's already in the collection. If we want to purchase 10 copies of that for our advantage collection, we can do that. But if it was a title that we didn't already have something in the consortium, then we wouldn't be able to use advantage funds. So it's about, we have all these pots of money. There's time involved in doing it and curating, and I mean, we're good at that because that's what you learn to do in library school, and that's collection development, collection management.
Are the advantage funds or
We've
is it
set
a
aside-
grant or something? What is that?
No, we
Not understanding.
internally take, so, you guys approve a set amount of money for materials, then we split it up based on type of materials, and then we split it up further. So we get, there's a very detailed budgets that go out to people that they're in charge of. So somebody might, have $1,300 to spend on this particular line, someone else does, so we have a set aside dollar amount set aside for advantage titles. We have a set aside for the regular collection for adult, a regular collection for youth or children, a regular collection for teens. Our budgets are very detailed internally. And so we're keeping track of it like that. So it's very complicated in terms of us trying to determine when we make a budget change based on need. We're looking at everything, how they're interconnected. The other piece with Hoopla is they can choose to add a title and take it out whenever they want. So if Amazon purchases the electronic rights to a title, they no longer allow Hoopla to have it. So then it just disappears. So sometimes a patron may complain and say, hey, I saw this title last week and it's not there right now. Why? Because they've got it in their favorites list and they're waiting to check it out. And it just disappears, and that might be a reason. It might be because Amazon has chosen to purchase the title and then it's no longer available through Hoopla. A lot of times it's also available through Overdrive. What we'd love to do is be able to only have titles that are not available on Overdrive and Hoopla, but while they do allow us to take titles out, they don't allow us to decide what to put in, and they're constantly changing it. So it makes it really tricky to do. It's almost impossible to really curate that collection. The other thing is we have price caps that we've put in because we have a set dollar amount budget because it's per use. So if the price caps have been exceeded, that might be another reason that the title's not available. And we have had to lower our price cap with Hoopla because the usage was just, it was skyrocketing, and we've already spent we've actually spent all of our budget for Hoopla this year already. So it wasn't a huge budget because we really are not thrilled with the model for this, so that's something we're working on. If you look at our current, but there's also a balancing act because of the wait times with Libby. So we're asking people to continue to give us feedback about your experience and talk to people in the community about their experience because we're, making some changes. We're trying to work within our budgets to make it the best that it can be.
Do you have other options? How can you make changes if there's no other options?
Well, we can make changes on how much money is allocated for each resource. We have investigated, there's one other vendor out. There are other vendors that provide things like movies and, you can do films, there's indie films, and there's foreign films, there's different vendors for that. But for ebooks and audiobooks, which is the majority of our usage, so if you look at, well, I'll go into details after. For ebooks and audiobooks, this is it, other than there's another service through another vendor, but our consortium would have to. We thought we could go directly to them and we were really excited about it. But we have since learned that our catalog has to go through them to be able to use it. So it's really, the consortium has to decide.
So would the
They're
whole
willing to do it.
consortium have to switch?
So the whole consortium would have
Like
to.
all of Upper Hempstead.
Right, and they started talking about whether, I still don't know, it's it was just discussed for the very first time as a potential thing to consider looking into at the last Directors Association meeting. And that was one of the things that we brought up because we have we've got to look at something else, what are the alternatives? And I still don't know if we can have Libby and have this cloud library or not. So that's something, so we're considering, we're always looking at what's out there. If you look at our, what's available in Hoopla, so Hoopla right now is only 13% of our digital circulation, and Libby is 87%. So even though, that's a pretty good indication of collection, what's in there, because even though there's wait times, it's still being used far more than Hoopla that you can use right away. Audiobooks and ebooks are the highest circulating collections. 54% of Hoopla is audiobooks and 24% is ebooks. And then with Libby, it's 42% audiobooks and 45% ebooks. So they're popular in both collections. There is no music at all available in Libby, which is one of the reasons that we were interested in Hoopla, because when we got rid of our CDs, we thought we really need this streaming service. There is another streaming music service available if we want to. It's the same model as Hoopla, so it's not really any better. It's still the cost per use, but our music is only 3% of our total borrowing, which is basically what it was when we decided to get rid of the CD collection. So most people are purchasing. You can stream music for free if you're willing to listen to ads. So it's like, are you gonna listen to an ad or are you gonna borrow one thing at a time? People are streaming their own music for the most part. TVs and you can borrow TV shows and movies from Hoopla, and people like that. That's not 19% of Hoopla's usage. That's not available in Libby. So if we were to get rid of Hoopla, which we're not saying we're there yet, but if we were to, because people love Hoopla.
Yeah, we use.
But it's super expensive. If we were to say, like, we wanna start putting more money into our Advantage collection so that we're reducing hold times and put more money into Libby, and we're saying, we wanna get rid of Hoopla, which we're not at that point yet, because we know that would be a big, people would not like that. There are other digital services that you could purchase to meet the TV and movie need. Magazines are not available on Hoopla at all, but they are available on Libby. Magazines are 13% of Libby's usage. So basically our current funding for Hoopla is 11% of our total digital funding. Our between Hoopla and Libby, that doesn't include our databases, but between Hoopla and Libby, our Hoopla funding is 11%. So this just shows you how much it's increasing because our total usage already is 13%. So in our Libby usage is 87% total digital, and the funding is 89%. But there's still dramatically more use of Libby. So it's just this, we're working on it, but I just wanted you to know that it's complicated, and keep us posted because you are the eyes and ears of the community along with our public service staff. And, just know that if you're looking for something, it costs the library a lot more money to use Hoopla. So if you're not in critical dire need to use it right away, please look on Libby. And if you're willing to wait, I mean, sometimes you don't even have to wait. A lot of times you don't have to wait, there's always stuff available, it's just sometimes the more popular titles you have to wait for.
Are you getting feedback from patrons in terms of hold times and things like that?
We
Their
haven't
feedback?
had a whole lot of patron feedback about hold times, other than just anecdotally. I mean, it's kind of like print, you still have hold times for print.
Mhm.
Well, what I like about it is you can request a bunch of titles, you can defer them as many times as you want to for as long as you want to. I really like that because if I'm already reading a book, then I know I'm not gonna be able to finish this within that window. So then I'll just defer, and I have like 6 requests at a time waiting. And then if they come up and the timing is right, then I love it and I can just take it right out. But if it isn't, then I can just defer it. And they keep coming back to me in my loop. I don't have to do the extra legwork to request it again or let it expire or whatever. So I really like that feature. I think that's huge.
So, and that's another piece that is challenging too, because that's wonderful to have. But if someone has that come up, you have like a set amount of time to borrow it, where even though you don't check it out, it's still allocated to you for like a week. So then it's kind of not available for the next person. So we've talked about where's the sweet spot, like how many titles do you allow people to put on hold? How many or is it the hold issue, or are we just allowing people, like right now, I think you can borrow 10 titles. Should we allow people to borrow less than 10 titles? Because how many titles can you realistically read at once? And then, so there's lots of nuanced things. Those are consortium decisions that aren't up to the library. But it's really good to know which things people value, so that we can bring that back to the consortium, bring it back to our team, like whoever's making the decisions. It's complicated. There's nothing that's simple about the digital resources, and it's just getting more complicated and more expensive. So there may be a point in time where we say we want to shift our budget. And right now we're just trying to kind of put some parameters in place, see what the impact is, see what kind of feedback we get, to see if we can just keep it all okay where it is, but we may need to shift funds around. That may be coming. And same thing Nicole mentioned with facilities.
Is there an opportunity, because you didn't get the funding you originally anticipated from SCODAC or requested, is there an opportunity to say we may go back to SCODAC? If the budget had gotten that tight, is that a possibility or not?
I don't think that's something that based on the discussions of the board in our negotiations with SCODAC, that was not something we were considering. We got less than we asked for, but we still got a significant increase from. It's something that we could bring back to the board, but it's not something that's a clear cut yes. Any other questions? I have some other things, but if you have questions about it.
Oh, I'm not on, you talked about surveys before, and
Yeah.
I was just curious what your time frame for the surveys are, so that you would have your feedback to make decisions.
So story time surveys, I believe, so ongoing, part of our strategic plan is to continuously do surveys. So they are actively making decisions right now with the story time surveys. They keep tweaking the surveys based on the feedback that they're getting. So the surveys about the story times and the programming for, was it the K through 5 programming? I think that survey is done, but don't quote me on that.
So I was curious because I saw that, and I'm glad that the surveys and the feedback is resulting in, some changes that for the good, but I just wondered how you're balancing the changes with, are you getting rid of things so that you can make some changes and add new things?
So for instance, with the story times, we're keeping the Saturday story times. And we are trying to go out for funding for a sensory story time. We have a grant put together and we're shopping that grant to see, shopping the project to see if we can get grant funding outside of the Friends, because we have other things we're asking the Friends for a sensory story time. But that would replace, we did get rid of the Monday night story time because that was something that was not seen as valuable, and we had low numbers for the Monday night story time, even though families have been asking for more after school programming hours, but the story time was just not, we found that Saturdays were much better for families than a nighttime story time for little ones, so that was helpful for us. The K-5 survey, talked about that they're preferring programming on Saturdays, Fridays, and Wednesdays. Well, that's helpful for us when we plan to make sure that we're doing it on the days that are most useful. And we haven't actually made any determinations on things like book boxes and services, but that's all within we're looking at our regular scope of services for the month. We don't just keep on adding, we say, okay, here's the capacity for the month and what can we do within that. So it's important to we plan quarterly, and sometimes things get added in, but for the most of our services are planned quarterly in advance. So this is what they're using to help plan the next set of programs and services for that team. We'll be doing more surveys. We have Staff Development Day coming up on Monday, the 28th, April 28th. So we're excited about that. We've got a Staff Development Day team put together. Jenna's leading that. They have a lot of energy and excitement. We've got, even though the topics some of the topics are fun, but some of them are more challenging topics, but they're still having fun planning it. So we've got active shooter training, we have safety and we haven't announced this yet to everybody.
No, we haven't announced
Okay.
Stuff, yeah.
Okay, well, hold off on, I'll hold off on telling you all about it. We're gonna announce it to the staff, but we've got some things that we're gonna work through that are attached to our strategic plan into safety and dealing with community members, public service. And then we have some really fun things that we're doing. Special thanks to the committee because they've really taken this. They're just about done and we're still a month and a half away, so that's phenomenal. We have a full staff meeting coming up on Friday. We'll be discussing current stuff happening. We've got a Rensselaer County Career Center partnership coming soon, so we'll have office hours, well, basically a satellite office here at the library, which we're excited about that. Also excited about a documentary screening that's coming up called Free for All. And it's a documentary that celebrates public libraries over, throughout the history of public libraries. And it talks about democracy and the role that libraries have taken in that, citizenship, women's contributions to the public library movement, literacy, immigration, segregation, racial justice. The whole documentary explores that from a library lens over history and the role of libraries currently. And so we are going to, what our team has decided, and this is adult and youth are working on this together, is that we're gonna show the screening, but we're also gonna do we're gonna have a discussion in the room for everybody, from representatives from different departments talking about what we do at the library. And then we're gonna have tours for anybody who wants to take a tour, behind the scenes out. So I think it would be a great thing for you guys to attend of all the programs. I think it's really would be very interesting. So I'll send that out to you when the date is made public. We just signed the contract for that, giving us the screening rates. It's free, but we're putting together all the details now, and that should be announced soon, and I can send that out. To all of you.
So I will be closing in 15 minutes. At this time, all meeting rooms are closed. Please don't bring your slide.
Is there anything else that was in my report? Do you have any questions about or anything? I know it took a lot of time to talk about the digital stuff, but I wanted to fill you in on a little bit more about that.
I thought there's a lot of great things that you guys are doing. I mean,
I didn't go over half of them.
yeah, well, they're in the report.
Yes, they are.
The trustee recruitment.
Yes, oh, thank you.
I wanted to, how can we as the board help?
So that'll be on the services agenda for this time. Hopefully we can get to that, but please start recruiting. It doesn't, you don't have to wait for that to be discussed at services. We have, Mary would like to, she didn't run for office. She's generously filling in right now and would like to have a replacement. And then we have 2 openings next year potentially, unless our trustees decide to run again. So we definitely need to start recruiting, and let's not wait. Thank you for reminding us of that. So, Mary, maybe you can send around, there's a letter that Mary has developed that's great. And she has reached out already to some people that we have been keeping track of, sort of that have expressed interest. And so she's reached back out, hey, are you interested? So if you want to share that letter, that would be great, because then you could send that out to people you know. But in many ways, the best way, and we talked about this at the trustee training, recruitment is best by a personal conversation. You can follow up with a letter or an email or follow up with a phone call, either way, but that personal conversation is really what gets people. I mean, there's always those anomalies, like where people just join because they're interested in doing good work and they've just figured it out. And I know we have a couple of people around the table, I don't know, but some of you have received phone calls and, personal invitations, and it's not something that it's not a club. We want anybody in the community to be able to participate if they're interested in being a library board member, but there's a lot to be said for a personal invitation. Also, take a look in our at the board matrix it might help you think about who you might want to recruit, because remember everybody has uploaded all of their different interests and skills and the things that you bring to the table. And so if you look at there and see, oh, where are the gaps? And then think, who do you know that might fill some of the gaps that we have to make sure that our board is becoming as equitable and diverse as our community is? That would be great. And then also think about the people who are coming off and what kind of skills they have that we'll be losing. Oh, one last thing. You got this by the numbers. I didn't think we were gonna have this by the meeting, but Susan is phenomenal. So she's, this is our annual, we do an annual report to the community. So now that our numbers are finalized from our annual report, this is just all the data that you already know about, but this is now, will go out to our community, social media, print, with this is our annual report to the community. And this is a requirement by state law to do.
For Jill?
I have a question about the book sale, so I don't know if you would be my better resource or if Jill would, but I know that you are being kind enough to invite the East Greenbush teachers in for the pre-sale. Is there an invitation also to teachers who live in East Greenbush but teach in other districts?
We only send to the Scott East Greenbush because that's how we know how to reach.
But if a
If
teacher,
teacher shows up with a teacher ID from some other school, I'm ready.
Did you include questions?
Susan handled it, she went through the two contacts that she had for the school districts and let them decide that. But if you wanna do word of mouth, I don't care, if they come in with a student ID or a teacher ID. Great.
okay,
And then with that, we'll kind of kick it to keep the liaison reports going. With no Cammy for Hudson, I didn't hear anything on Hudson. Julianne, okay.
Hey, let's talk book sale.
Yeah.
We have a book sale, as you know, we have filled all the slots for volunteers, which is awesome, I think everyone, that's great. Inventory is right where it should be for this, there'll be 4 extra hours this time around of sales time plus the teacher invite. So hopefully things will be right on track for that. And we will still have Maid Med loading in, and we'll have, bulk book warehouse helping us load out. So hopefully things will go smoothly, hopefully we won't have any lines at the door. But just be aware that we'll be opening at 9, as far as the library won't even be open, so that we'll have patrons in the building before the library opens, on 3 days of the sale, so just to be aware. And books, as you notice, the donations are closed, we're out of boxes, so that's my sign, it's not boxes, we're not taking any. Coming up, hopefully April 1st, we will have the swag shop ready to roll. We got travel mugs, we have window clings, they just say, like, I support my library, one says, too many books, I know there's been a question. And then we have 4 shirts that we picked, one of them is my library is a happy place, which is a really cute one. One says bans off my books. The other one has freedom with an F and an OM and then read spelled R-E-A-D, so it's freedom. And I can't remember the 4th one, and then there'll be one that's a Friends volunteer shirt, so those will be hopefully on display starting April 1st, and then we'll take orders. It's a kind of a teal or a turquoise color and a sand color, and then there's a little kids one that is reader today, leader tomorrow, or something like that. So we'll have all that for sale. Again, all the proceeds will go to Hoopla apparently, so. So look for that April 1st, and please encourage people to buy. They're all, nothing says East Greenbush Library on it, nothing says Friends except volunteer shirts, so they're just generic. I love reading, I love supporting this library. Take the message, so it can be anybody in any library that would want to benefit from.
They'll be on display like
Starting April 1st.
at a certain desk or?
We haven't quite finalized everything yet, our placement, Susan and I are working on it. But we will, I would think in the hallway, probably before you get into the actual main library, is the thought. And then let's see, the night at the library, so we had a big meeting on Saturday, we had some attendees there. I also had other people reach out to me independently, so we kind of put together a lot of different things. So the big things, as you know, it's going to be a silent art auction. We're celebrating art in all of its forms. So just from the early outreaches, we're already going to have local authors want to put together a bundle. So we're going to have something like that. We're thinking if we wind up going with a dessert reception, we might look at desserts as art and have contests for the best decorated art or cookie or, so we're taking the word art very, very widely. So we have 2 acoustic people that we've already arranged for, guitarists that will be playing. They're local to the community, so we'll have that going on already. And we're looking for our naming sponsors, so if anybody knows anybody, it's gonna be about $2,500 for the naming sponsor, but it has to be something that we feel is okay to be associated with both the library, the Friends, and the art community. We're reaching out to Yankee Trails, but we don't think they do a lot of philanthropic things, but we need something that's pretty neutral. They do?
Yeah.
Okay, well, let's hope. Shay is going to do their outreach for us on that. We also have somebody else reaching out to M&T Bank. Doesn't have to be your bank, right? So one of those, so those 2 we're in the.
what about Miracle and feeling she advertises
Yes.
everywhere in town?
Does anybody have a contact or a name with her? We're just stars. And that's, I mean, we're looking for it, so that would, like, we don't want a restaurant as the naming one, so I don't rule out restaurants. So if anybody has ideas, you can always shoot me an email. Some things I just want you to be aware of, we're gonna create a website, it'll be a Canva website. Susan will be with me on that, so she'll see it, but I just want you to be aware that there will be a site that's not eastgreenwich.org. That will be out there, that'll be just for this event. And also, when we're collecting art, we would like to jury it somewhat, a very gentle jury, because it's still the library, and I don't think I need a nude in the hallway, because the art will go up October 1st. So I'm wondering if there's anyone on the board who wants to today, but I would like a board person on the jury. Just in case there's anything that's just a little weird, I don't want to censor the art, because the art is art, but at the same time, I want to be appropriate for all ages, all peoples to see.
So we have a policy for that, so if we can follow the policy, we should be good.
Okay, great. And if I could see a copy of that policy, that would be great.
Yep, it's the exhibits policy and it's actually on our website under policies, about us policies, exhibit policy, exhibits.
Our plan is to have all the artwork go up on October 1st. That is hanging 2D artwork. And in the box, in the display cases, and then any other artwork, sculptures and other things wouldn't go up to the night of the event. So it's gonna be a hybrid, and that's what the jury will help us decide what's gonna be up long-term, what's gonna be up the event night only. So we're looking forward to it. We're slowly moving ahead. I met with Lisa, her last name was Weinstein, who did the art show, the Art in the Park show. She was the one sitting right behind us at the community day. She's been a great resource. We have a lot of ideas, things that we're going to reach out to talk to people. But we're also looking at performance art. We're going to possibly do a eat and sip in this room. But we're looking for people who might want to do art demos or who have some kind of really cool technique. Looking for street art. She also recommended, and I don't know that I can take this on, was huge outdoor panels with chalk art that would stay up. That would be a community thing. Just throwing it out there as an idea. It's kind of a big idea to have that out there, to have families come together and do a day where they all kind of design and paint something outside, and that stays up for something beyond our event, just maybe for a couple of weeks, I don't know.
One thing that might be, we've got those poles for the book walk.
Mm-hmm.
And we've talked about that potentially being a family project, because right now they're just plain. So maybe, a group could get together and decorate the poles.
That could be kind of cute. So if we had the month be celebrating art of all kinds, like we just really want to wide open. That's something to think about.
Could actually like if a family sponsors one. I mean, sometimes they have those towns will do that with trees. A group will decorate a tree and how much they donate to do that.
No, that's a great idea.
One of the things you can do.
And so I know you don't know this yet, but once you do know what the construction situation will be, that you want to take into consideration is how much do we want actually outside the building versus inside.
We could have people help.
We can have a hard hat party and
Do you know yet when you're thinking, or is it
we're
still in
tentatively
there?
holding the 18th of October. So it's a Saturday night, it's the week after the book sale.
You're glad.
Yeah. The book sale at that point will take care of itself, so we need the money, we'll have the books. Yeah, so that's tentatively what we're holding. And we've got the guitarist already reserved, tentatively reserved that date, so everyone kind of told us we better get that now before wedding season really kicks in. We are trying to find, if anybody has a contact at SCCC, we're trying to see if we can get their students come in and decorate the buffet. So once we have whatever our food's gonna be, we can come actually make it look. Oh, really? I see it on whatever it's called. There's a word for the mise en place. Is that what it's called? That's too many words. But these one competitions for it. So we're looking for that kind of thing, so I don't have them. But we'll also need wait staff to just make, we're gonna do beverages, we're gonna do coffee and tea and hot cocoa bar, a hot cider bar, so we just need people who will actually be able to work as wait staff, so we thought maybe SCCC would have students that would be able to come in.
Like in Questar, they have like the.
Do they
the
have a
life
program?
skills program?
Yeah.
And there's one at Columbia as well.
Culinary.
Yeah.
They do, I didn't know if they did.
Yeah.
Yes, it's
Library.
Western
Library is now closed. Thank you.
And Columbia both have it?
I know they
It's
they work together.
yeah, it's Columbia students through Questar, but it's like many districts, like all the Rensselaer County districts who are the pool that they draw from, and then they take the program off site.
Well, that'd be great, because I just need someone to make coffee and just clean things up and keep it neat.
That's what they do, like with that little kitchen thing, so.
Right. I mean, and the other, like if Kayla's husband, that's great, but if he can't, like Susan does an amazing job, like tablecloths and stacking and making things.
I think she'd shoot me.
So presentable.
She's good at explaining.
Oh, she's very good, but she's gonna shoot me, so. I've got her doing a lot of things.
She's very good at it. That's the problem, when you're really good at stuff, people come to you.
I know. And we're still working on it, but we'd like to be able to run fairy lights and electric candles through the whole building and lighted balloons. That's where we're headed with decor. Quick, doesn't take a lot to put it up. The big lights on, so.
And what's the,
October 18th. And then we use it, I think, when. It's come to mind yet, so. Textile, performance, music, books. Take it all. Who does art is one of our things, so. Where is the
Maybe a tattoo down.
art is art, I don't, we're not gonna censor.
Here she go, got sketches.
She does really good.
Okay, so they have the whole book, they have all those books, that's easy, it's easy art.
We've got all these. You've seen those already.
Yes,
Put up
yes.
everywhere.
Yeah, we haven't done a floor plan yet, that's gonna be one of our next steps, just to see what we can fit here. CK dance, one to come and dance. Who knows? Or, it's another form of art, yeah, we're looking at all art, so. So that's what I got, so I will try to keep you up to date, because I think there'll be things that I won't realize are touchy or sensitive, so I'll just keep trying to throw things out. Keep us on track.
what authors do you have? What authors?
I don't know yet, Kyle Massa is the one who reached out and said he's gonna reach out to a bunch of his buddies who are.
Because I would see John Private.
And that's why we want the jury process also, just to make sure that we've got, we're looking at price ranges of 30 to 500 as our price range, so we're not looking for craft. Things that people will bid on.
So much. Thank you.
Super exciting.
Very exciting.
Alright, so nothing from Jim or Tom. So that was the liaisons and nothing in review business unless folks have anything. Everyone's favorite part of the meeting, motion to adjourn the March 8th, 2025 library board meeting. We got Kayla making a motion, second. Katie making a second. All in favor? 6 unanimously approved, and the move and the meeting is over at 8:04. Thanks, everyone.
Thank you.